Hello there, I am Kate Manpour, and today I am taking a step back from reviewing the big pop culture movies and shows such as Fantastic Four and Peacemaker to take a seat and actually ponder, why is it we hate current movies more than we did 6 years ago?
Oh brother, this guy stinks!
Movies like Ant-Man, Quantumania, and The Eternals have been some of Marvel's lowest performing projects ever. While The Flash was not quite the savior the DCEU thought it would be, and I've heard it's because of multiverse fatigue and superhero fatigue, but to paraphrase professional reviewer Ryan Airy, people dress as their favorite players for football games and even wear face paint like hardcore Marvel and DC fans. But when they go out with their friends and the Cubs lose, people don't say that they have Cubs fatigue or football fatigue, they just say, oh, the Cubs lost. Hopefully they'll do better next time, which is honestly very much true. I'm first going to go over all the shows people have hated on recently: She-Hulk, Secret Invasion, Ironheart, and Echo. These shows, while I do think there are some great things done in Ironheart, were not responded well by fans. Those were shows with okay storytelling, which isn't enough in a world where there's loads of content. And to be given by a multi-billion company a show that isn't that great downplays their impact. But those aren't multiverse movies. Though, as much as I would like to pretend What If Season 3 never happened, well, it did.
That is one big...
Yes, What If Season 3 was not great, but the reason that it didn't work was not because of the multiverse was too complicated or that it was too big to fully comprehend. In fact, it was the opposite. What If Season 3 did not learn from its past 2 seasons? It made their show too small, focused way too much on Captain Carter and Howard the Duck's kid, and they brought Storm finally into a multiverse story in a lazy way that though an episode about Thor's Storm would have been genius.
Welcome to the MCU, by the way. You're joining at a bit of a low point.
See, the best of What If was not its storyline. In fact, that was usually when the show would be at its low points. The best episodes were the ones like What If Peter Quill attacked Earth's mightiest heroes, my personal favorite, where the writers thought out who would be alive to fight Peter and made an awesome Avengers mini-movie. Now, the point of what I was saying is that What If's multiverse was awesome until it didn't have the best writing. Now, of course, even though is my job to judge, I do feel for how most of the multiverse projects, writers were on a tight schedule and were forced to write things, and then the entire show would just change its plot right before it came out, like Secret Invasion. While I say the fault of all the lacking projects is not on the multiverse, but the rushed writing, I am not judging the writers themselves. I can never do what they do in such a crunch time that Marvel gives them. I am honestly glad now that Marvel has slowed down recently and given more time for projects to breathe, because projects like Deadpool Wolverine and Thunderbolts are amazing, but only because Deadpool Wolverine was the only Marvel movie that came out in 2024, which is a big step for Marvel to let their stories have a chance to breathe. But of course, it's not only the shows that have been judged, but their movies, like Eternals, Quantumania, Brave New World, Love and Thunder, Multiverse of Madness, and The Flash. Again, most of these didn't include the multiverse. Love and Thunder and Eternals were victims of having too much control from studios like Marvel, putting a Marvel feel into Eternals, which very much felt unnatural.
Vibranium.
Fall collection. IKEA.
And the studio putting no control in Love and Thunder when Taika Waititi had the actors improv half the movie.
Let's bring the rainbow.
Bring the rainbow, is that a catchphrase or something?
She's only been a fool for a minute.
But going back to the others, I personally liked Brave New World. While it of course wasn't as thrilling as the first 3 Captain Americas, whether or not Chris Evans played the title character, it was a fun movie with a nice Hulk fight scene at the end. It just shouldn't have marketed the Red Hulk being in the movie that much. And, well, Quantumania, I am sorry to say it, but as bad as a person as he is in real life, Jonathan Majors did a hell of a job in this movie. I comprehend that he was playing a conqueror from a different universe who talks like a man in a Shakespearean play.
That's what conquerors do.
It was just not the greatest CGI again. Not the people working on its fault. They were very much on a crunch timeline, and people really wanted Ant-Man to die in the end for some reason.
Okay, Patrol, spell it out!
T-I-E-T-I-E-T-I-E, let's die!
Yeah, we're not gonna make it.
But Going to a very mixed movie, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which again had awesome multiverse scenes with the Illuminati, and in my opinion, the best Reed Richards ever, John Krasinski.
Who am I? I'm Jim.
But the whole thing with Wanda as evil is where it fell off. Again, not the fault of Sam Raimi, who of course is the man who single-handedly solved the world peace for everyone with this scene. And directed this movie, but it is the fault of a lack of communication between the movie and WandaVision, which hopefully shouldn't happen again. But honestly, that line Wong says about how he probably could have it worse in a different life really is still one of the best lines to end a multiverse movie. But let's get down to the actual multiverse stories. No Way Home, Deadpool Wolverine, Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, Loki, and Fantastic Four First Steps. Now for No Way Home, in the words of Nick Fury himself,
God damn, Jimmy. This some serious gourmet.
and for Deadpool Wolverine, I had heard some complaints that it relies too much on cameos, but when Elektra, Blade, and Gambit are full on helping the main characters in the film, they're also characters. This film is my favorite of all time because it's not trying to impress any critics, it's just fun. It might be weird to hear a review channel say this, but there are times when you could just enjoy a movie, or else we get too much in the logic of it.
Lois Lane is falling, accelerating at an initial rate of 32 feet per second. Superman swoops down to save her by reaching out two arms of steel. Miss Lane, who is now traveling at approximately 120 miles an hour, hits them and is immediately sliced into 3 equal pieces.
And Deadpool Wolverine is one of those movies, and it uses the multiverse to the best of its abilities. And then we get to the Loki of it all.
I have been falling for 30 minutes.
This show is probably the most complicated show ever made by Marvel. The season 1 finale was just the characters explaining the show to each other, and I've still had to explain the finale to many of my friends. Which, by the way, if you guys would like an episode explaining all that, let me know in the comments below. Anyway, it had so many complicated plot points involving timelines and the multiverse, and yet it is one of the greatest creations Marvel has yet again proven we love complicated stories told well. Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man is a story based in a different universe that, in my opinion, did Spider-Man in the MCU better than Tom Holland's more Iron Man Apprentice-like interpretation did.
If you're nothing without this suit, then you shouldn't have it.
First Steps is the second best interpretation of the Fantastic Four after The Incredibles, though it introduces another completely different new universe. But we still kind of just got it immediately. Anyways, the multiverse stories are all outstanding, and if we get gems like the Fantastic Four and Moon Knight, so be it. Basically, of this long, almost repetitive rant, that when you look back on this quirky, fun last 7 years or so, though we've been watching multiverse movies being shown in every movie theater everywhere all at once.
Say that again?
Don't be like most people who criticize it for being too complicated or multiverse fatigue. It is just a bit of rush writing that is not the writer's fault. Yet it had some of the best movies ever made by Marvel.
I think it's been steadily great since Endgame.
And let's be honest here, The Flash having the Tim Burton Batman return, there is no complaints about that. And of course,
You stay classy.